The hushed quiet of the Havenwood Historical Society archives was Evelyn Reed's sanctuary at 47. Dr. Evelyn Reed was the meticulous and highly respected town historian in this small, idyllic community, nestled beside the sprawling, man-made Lake Serenity in upstate New York. Her life was a perfectly calibrated instrument, each day tuned to the rhythm of verifiable facts and documented truths. She was known, both within academic circles and among the local populace, for her unwavering dedication to empirical evidence and her thinly veiled disdain for anything resembling local folklore or unsubstantiated legend. For Evelyn, history was a science, a precise reconstruction of the past based on irrefutable proof, not the whimsical whisper of old wives' tales. Mornings found her in the hushed archives, the air thick with the scent of aging paper and forgotten stories. She moved with an almost surgical precision, cataloging, cross-referencing, and indexing ancient deeds, census records, and faded photographs. Her fingers, stained faintly with ink and dust, would meticulously turn brittle pages, searching for the definitive date, the irrefutable signature, the undeniable truth. Evenings were spent immersed in academic texts, surrounded by stacks of peer-reviewed journals and obscure historical treatises. Her only companion, the soft glow of her reading lamp. Her apartment, a starkly organized space above the historical society itself, subtly emphasized her preference for order over spontaneity, fact over fancy. Bookshelves lined every wall, their contents neatly categorized by era and subject. Historical artifacts, a perfectly preserved colonial-era quill, a fragment of an early American flag, a meticulously labeled shard of Native American pottery, sat on display, each one a testament to documented reality. There were no frivolous knickknacks, no sentimental clutter, just the stark beauty of curated history. Her dinner ritual was a precise, measured affair. A single plate, a single fork, a single glass of water, all arranged with almost geometric exactitude on her small dining table. The only sound was the faint rustle of the academic papers she often reviewed during her meal, or the soft hum of the antique clock on her mantelpiece. There were no sprawling conversations, no shared laughter. She found a quiet, profound satisfaction in debunking local myths, in meticulously dismantling unsubstantiated claims with irrefutable evidence. It wasn't about malice. It was about a commitment to truth, a reflection of her unwavering dedication to the purity of historical record. To allow folklore to masquerade as fact was, to Evelyn, an intellectual offense. One crisp autumn evening, Havenwood's town hall was abuzz with a contentious meeting about proposed budget cuts affecting various local services, including the beloved, if chronically underfunded, Historical Society. The town council, focused on infrastructure and economic development, saw the Historical Society as a quaint but non-essential expense. The air was thick with frustrated murmurs and the occasional angry shout. When the discussion turned to the Historical Society's budget, a few council members scoffed. Who needs dusty old books when we've got roads to fix? Evelyn, usually reserved and quietly observant, felt a surge of indignation. She didn't seek personal glory or the spotlight, but this was an attack on the very principle of preserving documented truth. She rose, her posture stiff but resolute, and walked to the microphone. Her voice, though initially quiet, gained strength with every word, resonating with an unexpected passion. Council members, citizens, she began, her gaze sweeping across the faces in the room. I understand the need for fiscal responsibility, but to dismiss the Historical Society as non-essential is to dismiss the very bedrock of who we are. We are not just about dusty old books. We are the keepers of your past, the documented evidence of your ancestors' struggles and triumphs. We preserve the deeds that prove your property rights, the census records that show your family's migrations, the photographs that capture forgotten faces. These aren't quaint relics. They are the verifiable facts that connect us to our roots, that inform our present, and that guide our future. She didn't resort to emotional pleas or flowery rhetoric. Instead, She presented a concise, eloquent argument for the inherent value of documented truth, of meticulously preserved evidence, even seemingly mundane ones, for future generations. She spoke of the importance of primary sources, of verifiable genealogies, of the legal implications of lost records. She argued that true community resilience wasn't just about roads and bridges, but about understanding where they came from. Her logic was unassailable, her passion undeniable. A few council members shifted uncomfortably. A quiet murmuring of agreement rippled through the audience. She didn't win a full reversal of the cuts, but she managed to secure enough funding to keep the archives open, earning a quiet, grudging respect from a few discerning community members who, for the first time, saw beyond her rigid academic exterior to the fiery dedication within. Despite her unwavering commitment to empirical truth, Evelyn occasionally experienced something that defied her rational framework: vivid, almost lucid dreams. They were always the same, a recurring nocturnal odyssey into an ancient, submerged village. She would see dilapidated wooden structures, their roofs covered in moss and strange, iridescent algae, houses clinging to a rocky hillside. She would hear the faint, echoing sound of forgotten bells, a deep, resonant chime that seemed to emanate from the water itself. And most unsettlingly, she would smell it, the faint, lingering scent of wood smoke, mingling with the earthy aroma of wet soil and something indescribably ancient. These details were strangely specific, hauntingly vivid, and emotionally resonant, stirring a melancholic wistfulness she couldn't explain. She would wake with a jolt, the phantom scent of wood smoke still in her nostrils, the phantom sound of bells still echoing in her ears. She would immediately dismiss them as mere stress-induced fantasies, a byproduct of too many late nights immersed in the dusty, silent past. Her rational mind, her scientific training, offered no other explanation. They utterly contradicted her waking rationalism, her unwavering belief in provable facts. But sometimes, as she brewed her morning coffee, a fleeting, unbidden image of that submerged village would surface, a silent question mark against the backdrop of her orderly life. These dreams, these unsettling glimpses into a forgotten world, hinted at a subconscious connection to the very legends she publicly discredited, a whisper from a past she refused to acknowledge, a deep-seated mystery she had yet to truly confront. The summer of that year settled over Havenwood like a suffocating blanket, not of warmth, but of an unprecedented, severe drought. The skies above upstate New York remained a relentless, cloudless blue, day after scorching day. The once lush landscape withered, its vibrant greens fading to brittle browns, and the magnificent lake's serenity, Havenwood's pride and joy, began to recede at an alarming rate. Its vast surface, usually shimmering and placid, shrank relentlessly, exposing cracked, sun-baked earth that had lain submerged for generations. As the water levels dropped, Evelyn Reed, observing from her quiet vantage point in the Historical Society, felt a strange, unsettling ripple of anxiety. It wasn't just the ecological disaster. It was the peculiar shapes beginning to emerge from the receding shoreline. First, peculiar, unnaturally geometric rock formations appeared, their angles too precise, too regular to be natural. Then, as the lake continued its relentless retreat, glimpses of what appeared to be ancient, weathered timbers began to break the surface of the exposed lakebed, dark and skeletal against the parched earth. The local community, initially fascinated by the receding waters, quickly shifted from scientific curiosity to something more primal, more superstitious. Whispers began to ripple through Havenwood, growing louder with each passing day. The old-timers, the ones Evelyn had always dismissed as purveyors of quaint but unsubstantiated tales, began to speak of the legend of Ethelgard. It was a mythical pre-colonial settlement, said to have been a hidden village, prosperous and deeply connected to the land, supposedly drowned beneath the lake when the dam was constructed over a century ago. Evelyn, with her unwavering commitment to verifiable facts, had vehemently, publicly, and repeatedly dismissed this legend as baseless folklore, a charming but utterly fabricated story passed down through generations. The emerging anomalies and the resurfacing legend felt like a direct, personal assault on Evelyn's professional integrity. Her carefully constructed reputation as a meticulous historian, built on decades of unwavering dedication to verifiable facts, was suddenly threatened by the public's sudden, credulous embrace of folklore. Her comfortable world of documented truth was fracturing under the weight of an inconvenient, resurfacing myth. She could hear the whispers in the town square, the knowing glances. "Dr. Reed said it was fake," someone had murmured just that morning outside the hardware store. Now look, her frustration was further fueled by her academic rival, Professor Alistair Finch, from a larger, more prestigious university in Albany. Finch was a charismatic, media-savvy historian who championed interdisciplinary studies, often incorporating oral traditions and speculative theories into his research, much to Evelyn's professional disdain. Finch, hearing of the emerging ruins, subtly questioned Evelyn's rigid adherence to conventional methodology during a public radio interview, hinting that some historians are simply too closed-minded to acknowledge truths that exist outside their narrow academic frameworks. He chuckled, a smooth, condescending sound. Perhaps it's time for a more open-minded approach to Havenwood's history. His comments, subtly implying Evelyn's incompetence and intellectual inflexibility, fueled her mounting frustration and a growing sense of intellectual siege. Evelyn felt her intellectual authority undermined, her world of verifiable truth fracturing under the weight of an inconvenient, stubbornly resurfacing myth. Evelyn initially doubled down on her skepticism. She presented irrefutable historical evidence that contradicted the Ethelgard legend, the original engineering schematics for the dam, dating back to the late 19th century, which showed no prior settlement. Census records from the early 1800s that listed no such village. "These emerging shapes," she declared during a hastily arranged press conference for the local news, gesturing dismissively at photographs of the exposed timbers, "are nothing more than natural geological formations, perhaps exacerbated by erosion, or at best, the remains of a forgotten logging camp that operated briefly before the dam's construction. There is no documented evidence of any lost settlement. This is simply mass hysteria, fueled by an old wives' tale." She feared being associated with superstitious nonsense, convinced that her professional reputation would be permanently tainted. However, a small, persistent detail from the emerging ruins, a tiny splinter in her rational mind, gnawed at her. She had seen it in the photographs provided by the local police, taken during their initial assessment of the exposed lakebed, a peculiar, almost geometric pattern etched into a newly exposed stone, perfectly preserved despite its time underwater. It wasn't a natural striation. It was a precise, interlocking design, uncannily similar to a recurring motif that appeared in her unsettling, lucid dreams of the submerged village. She had dismissed the dreams as stress-induced fantasies. Now, this minor and nagging inconsistency, this echo from her subconscious, awakened a dormant, almost reluctant curiosity, a scholarly instinct that demanded a closer look, even if it defied her entire rational framework. It was a crack in her carefully constructed wall of skepticism. The point of no return arrived during a heated live television interview for the local news channel, WHTV Havenwood, hosted by the charismatic but relentlessly persistent reporter Chloe Davis. Chloe, a young, ambitious journalist, reveled in the dramatic unfolding of the Ethelgard mystery. She grilled Evelyn, her questions sharp, designed to highlight the historian's rigid adherence to facts. "Dr. Reed," Chloe pressed, her voice smooth but challenging, "given the overwhelming public sentiment and the physical evidence emerging from the lake, can you still, with absolute certainty, declare the legend of Ethelgard to be a complete fabrication?" Evelyn, visibly flustered, adjusted her spectacles. "My certainty, Ms. Davis, is based on verifiable historical records, not on sentiment or superstition. There is no evidence." Just then, The phone line crackled to life. It was a live call-in. An elderly, trembling voice came through the speaker. Agnes Miller, a beloved local resident, known for her beautiful but often rambling storytelling, an ardent believer in the Ethelgard legend. "Dr. Reed." Agnes's voice resonated with unexpected clarity. "You might find your proof if you look for the Sunstone amulet. It was carved by the first elder, hidden in the heart of the settlement, in the central square. It brings the light back when the darkness falls." Evelyn scoffed, an involuntary, dismissive sound. "Ms. Miller, that is precisely the kind of wild fantasy I am referring to. A sunstone amulet in a central square of a mythical village. It's folklore, nothing more." She dismissed the detail publicly, on live television, as yet another wild fantasy. As Evelyn concluded the interview, a triumphant smile on Chloe Davis's face, Evelyn happened to glance at a nearby monitor displaying a satellite image of the receding lake. Freshly updated, and there it was, unmistakable. Beneath the shrinking waters, a distinct, unnatural, almost perfectly symmetrical depression was clearly visible at the lake's deepest point, directly where the legend placed Ethelgard's central plaza. The contours were too regular, too intentional to be natural. The convergence of the specific sunstone amulet detail, Agnes Miller's unwavering conviction, the public challenge on live television, and the irrefutable satellite image struck Evelyn with the force of a physical blow. Her meticulously ordered world reeled. She knew now that she could not return to merely dismissing the legend. The lines between verifiable fact and ancient folklore had blurred, irrevocably. Her quiet, fact-driven life was now undeniably entangled in a deeper, more profound mystery, one that challenged the very core of her professional identity and hinted at a buried truth far more astonishing than she had ever dared to imagine. The rational historian was about to embark on a journey into the heart of legend. The irrefutable satellite image, revealing the symmetrical depression at Lake Serenity's deepest point, had shattered Evelyn Reed's carefully constructed world of verifiable facts. Coupled with Agnes Miller's hauntingly specific call about a sunstone amulet, it was an undeniable truth that demanded action. Evelyn, driven by a gnawing curiosity and a profound need for answers, knew she had to confront the very folklore she had so vehemently, so publicly, dismissed. She was not seeking validation. She was seeking understanding, compelled by the silent whispers of a history she had sworn was fake. Her quest led her to a quaint, slightly dilapidated cottage on the outskirts of Havenwood, surrounded by a riot of overgrown wildflowers and ancient oak trees. This was the home of Agnes Miller, the gentle but fiercely protective keeper of Havenwood's oral history. Agnes was a woman of timeless grace, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, each one telling a story. Her eyes, though clouded by age, held a surprising depth, a knowing twinkle that suggested she saw far more than most. Evelyn approached the cottage with a mixture of professional skepticism and a reluctant, almost nervous deference. She still clung to the hope that there was a logical, scientific explanation for Agnes's visions, a thread of verifiable fact that could untangle the knot of folklore. "Ms. Miller," Evelyn began, her voice unusually soft. "I'm Dr. Reed, from the Historical Society. I wanted to follow up on your call to the television show about the Sunstone amulet." Agnes smiled, a warm, knowing expression that seemed to embrace Evelyn's internal conflict. "Ah, Dr. Reed, the sun has finally begun to shine on the old truths. Hasn't it? Please, come in. The kettle's just on." The cottage interior was a cozy jumble of knitted blankets, antique photographs, and shelves overflowing not with books, but with peculiar hand-carved wooden figurines, polished stones, and dried herbs hanging from the rafters. The air was thick with the comforting scent of chamomile and something ancient, almost primal, like damp earth and old wood. As Evelyn sat on a well-worn armchair, Agnes poured 2 cups of steaming herbal tea. "The amulet," Agnes began, her voice a low, melodic hum. It was crafted by Elder Theron, the first leader of Ethelgard. It captured the morning light, they say, and kept the heart of the settlement warm. Even in the deepest winter, it was hidden, not beneath the earth, but within the central square, beneath the weeping willow, where the first well sprang. She paused, her eyes distant, as if viewing a landscape only she could see. And around it, the 12 stones of the elders. Each one whispered a secret, a story of the river's dance and the moon's pull. The path to it. She hummed softly, her voice taking on a strangely rhythmic quality. Is hidden where the water gathers its tears, and the stone holds its breath. Agnes then began to sing, her voice thin but clear. An old, obscure folk song Evelyn had never encountered in any documented archive. The lyrics were simple, almost childlike, yet they painted a vivid picture of a hidden chamber within the central square, where the weeping willow bends its tears, and the river sleeps in ancient fears. Below the 12 stones, the heart of sun gleams, Ethelgard's secret, whispered in dreams. The song contained intricate, almost impossible to decipher, metaphorical directions to the amulet's precise location within the submerged plaza. This detail, shared not through a factual statement, but through an old, obscure folk song, was couched in metaphors about the heart of the sun, the amulet, and the weeping willow's tear, a natural spring or ancient well. Evelyn, forced to interpret the folklore not as literal truth, but as a form of coded geographical information, felt a profound tremor of recognition. The abstract details in the song matched the contours of the satellite image, the slight elevation variations, the specific rock formations she had seen. She realized the hidden truth within Agnes's seemingly fanciful tale. Just as Agnes finished her song, a tentative knock sounded at the door. It was Ethan Vance, Evelyn's young, eager historical society intern. Ethan, a bright and enthusiastic college student, had been trained by Evelyn in her strict academic methods, devoutly believing in the supremacy of primary sources and verifiable data. He had reluctantly accompanied Evelyn, a bundle of maps and historical records clutched nervously in his arms. His skepticism evident in his slightly raised eyebrow and polite, almost forced, smile. Ethan witnessed the entire exchange. He heard Agnes's song, saw the quiet intensity in her eyes, and then, most crucially, he saw the transformation on Evelyn's face. He watched as Evelyn, initially rigid, slowly softened, her analytical mind working furiously, connecting Agnes's poetic metaphors to the cold, hard data of the satellite imagery and the geological reports. He saw Evelyn's uncanny ability to decipher the hidden meanings within Agnes's ravings, to translate folklore into actionable intelligence. Ethan, the pragmatic helper, his initial skepticism crumbling, looked from Agnes to Evelyn, a spark of wonder igniting in his eyes. He began to lend his sharp research skills and youthful enthusiasm to Evelyn's now unconventional investigation, pulling out his tablet to cross-reference Agnes's details with digitized topographical maps and sonar readings of the lakebed. He was beginning to see the deeper, unsettling pattern that Sarah was uncovering. Unbeknownst to Evelyn and Ethan, their quiet investigation was not as private as they believed. Professor Alistair Finch, the rival historian from Albany, had been actively monitoring the Havenwood situation with a predatory intensity. Finch secretly believed the Ethelgard legend might be true and viewed it as a potential career-making discovery, a chance to overshadow Evelyn and secure his own fame. His network of local academic contacts and opportunistic citizen scientists had fed him information about Evelyn's sudden interest in Agnes Miller and the Sunstone Amulet. Upon learning of Evelyn's renewed interest in the Sunstone Amulet and the precise details emerging from the ruins through his own network of local informants and academic spies, Professor Finch, driven by ambition and a cold determination to claim the discovery for himself, initiated a subtle, insidious campaign to discredit Evelyn. He made a series of anonymous calls to reporter Chloe Davis at WHTV Havenwood, carefully leaking expert opinions that dismissed Evelyn's sudden interest in folklore as unscientific and her association with Agnes Miller as a sign of professional desperation, subtly implying that Evelyn was losing her academic rigor and perhaps even her sanity. He suggested that her newfound enthusiasm for local myths was merely a desperate attempt to stay relevant in the face of a younger, more dynamic generation of historians. He believed he was simply clearing the path to his own glory, undermining Evelyn's credibility so that when the true discovery was made, it would be attributed solely to him. He was utterly oblivious to the profound irony the very folklore he dismissed as quaint, and the crazy old woman he viewed as a convenient pawn, were about to reveal a truth far more profound and dangerous than he could ever imagine, a truth that would expose his own treacherous ambition. The hidden, buried secret of Ethelgard was about to be unearthed, not by rigorous academic methods alone, but by the intuitive wisdom of a woman dismissed, and the reluctant courage of a historian forced to question everything she believed. The parched, cracked earth of Lake Serenity's exposed bed now dominated the landscape of Havenwood, a vast, desolate expanse that stretched to the horizon. What was once a shimmering symbol of tranquility was now a gaping wound, revealing secrets the waters had held for over a century. The peculiar rock formations had given way to undeniable architectural outlines, the skeletal remains of stone foundations, crumbling walls, and the ghostly imprints of long-vanished homes. This rapidly shrinking Lake Serenity, now a vast, sun-baked archaeological site, had become the gauntlet, a crucible of truth where Evelyn Reed's academic rigor would be tested against ancient wisdom, and where her once mocked conviction would face its ultimate trial. The ultimate test was no longer just proving the Ethelgard legend. It was a desperate race against time and ambition. Evelyn knew that submerged ruins, once exposed to air, could rapidly deteriorate, their delicate structures turning to dust, their artifacts crumbling. And a rival faction, subtly at work, threatened to destroy or steal crucial evidence, erasing the truth before it could be properly documented. Evelyn was utterly alone in this newly revealed landscape. She had no official archaeological credentials for underwater ruins, no legal authority to secure the rapidly expanding site. The exposed lakebed, vast and treacherous, was a labyrinth of mud, slippery rocks, and treacherous crevices. She was surrounded by a skeptical public, their curiosity still tinged with doubt, and subtle, interfering rival teams. Ethan, her intern, provided crucial remote support from the Historical Society, cross-referencing maps and historical documents. But Evelyn herself faced the physical challenges of the exposed lakebed and the covert interference of Finch's hired hands directly. Her only weapon was her meticulous intellect, Agnes Miller's cryptic insights, and a burning desire for historical accuracy. Her primary objective was clear locate the Sunstone Amulet. Agnes's song had been precise, if metaphorical, pointing to its location beneath the weeping willow in the central square, surrounded by 12 stones. Evelyn had cross-referenced Agnes's description with her newfound understanding of the ancient blueprints, believing the weeping willow referred to a spring or an old well, and the 12 stones to foundational markers. As Evelyn meticulously traversed the exposed lakebed, avoiding the deeper mud pits and slippery rock formations, a new tension began to mount. Time pressure. Reports from the National Weather Service, once a source of only vaguely alarming forecasts, were now grim and specific. A major storm system, an atmospheric river carrying immense amounts of moisture, was predicted to break the drought in less than 48 hours. This would be a deluge, threatening to resubmerge the exposed ruins, potentially destroying crucial evidence and reburying the truth forever. Evelyn knew she had a rapidly closing window. Suddenly, she spotted them, 2 figures, moving with suspicious stealth among the ruins on the far side of the exposed lakebed. They were not archaeologists. Their movements were too furtive, their equipment too utilitarian. They were Finch's hired hands, discreetly searching for artifacts, aiming to claim any valuable discovery for Finch, or, worse, to remove any evidence that might contradict his prepackaged narrative for the media. They were already moving towards what Evelyn believed was the central square. Miles quickened her pace, her heart pounding. She had to get there first. The vast, cracked expanse of the lakebed felt endless, each step heavy with purpose and urgency. The air was thick with the scent of dried mud and dying fish, a stark reminder of the lake's rapid decline. The sun beat down relentlessly, making the exposed earth shimmer with heat. She located the approximate area of the central square, guided by the symmetrical depression she'd seen on the satellite image. Here, the ruins were more pronounced, the foundations of larger structures clearly visible. She looked for the Weeping Willow's Tear, the ancient spring. She found it, a small, circular indentation in the bedrock, now dry and cracked, but clearly a point where water had once collected. And around it, half buried in the mud, were 12 large, roughly hewn stones, forming a distinct circle, the 12 stones of the elders. Her hands, usually so accustomed to the delicate turning of historical documents, now dug frantically at the parched earth near the dry spring. The ground was hard, unyielding. She scraped away layers of mud and sediment, her fingers aching, desperate to find the hidden chamber Agnes had sung about. The sun beat down on her, sweat stinging her eyes. She glanced up, seeing Finch's operatives approaching, their figures growing larger, more menacing. They were almost at the edge of the central square. "Ethan," she called into her earpiece, her voice tight with urgency. "They're here, Finch's people. I need to know about the Weeping Willow's Tear. Any details about the hidden mechanism Agnes's song implies something more than just digging." Ethan's voice, a little breathless, crackled in her ear. "Dr. Reed, I'm cross-referencing Agnes's dialect with old Havenwood geological surveys. Her tears metaphor. It might not be a spring. It could be a pressure point, a trigger. The ancient inhabitants often built with natural hydrological systems in mind to control water flow. A pressure point, a trigger." Evelyn looked back at the dry spring, at the seemingly random divots in the surrounding stone. Her fingers, covered in mud, traced the patterns. She remembered Agnes's seemingly nonsensical lyrics. The stone holds its breath. A specific stone, a specific pressure. She pushed against a large, flat slab near the edge of the dry spring, feeling for any give. Nothing. The rain clouds, still distant, were beginning to darken the western horizon, a tangible threat. The clock was ticking, not just on the impending resubmersion of the site, but on the approach of Finch's operatives. They were now within shouting distance, their voices low and urgent as they began to probe the ruins, clearly looking for anything valuable. Evelyn, ignoring the ache in her hands and the mounting panic, focused. She remembered a specific line from Agnes's song about the river sleeping in ancient fears, and a curious anomaly on the old city map that Alex had helped her decipher. A subtle, man-made alteration to a minor underground stream, diverting its flow. What if the spring wasn't a natural well, but a cleverly disguised control for a hidden mechanism? Her mind, forced to embrace the unconventional, raced, drawing connections between disparate pieces of folklore, historical data, and geological anomalies. She was no longer just analyzing facts, she was deciphering a forgotten world, the stakes higher than she could have ever imagined. The truth of Ethelgard and her own vindication lay just beneath her fingers, waiting to be revealed before the storm, and the deceitful hands of Finch's men consumed it forever. The parched lakebed of Havenwood shimmered under the bruised, turbulent sky, mirroring Evelyn Reed's racing mind. The air, heavy with the scent of dry earth and the distant promise of rain, vibrated with an ominous energy. She could hear them now, the low murmurs of Professor Alistair Finch's operatives, their furtive movements growing closer, their figures dark and predatory against the exposed ruins. They were nearing the central square, the heart of Ethelgard, and the precious sunstone amulet. Evelyn, her hands already caked with mud and dust, frantically scraped at the hard earth near the dry spring, the supposed weeping willow's tear. Her fingers ached, but the urgency in Ethan's voice, crackling in her earpiece, pushed her onward. Dr. Read Agnes's song. The line about the stone holds its breath. It's not a direct pressure point. It's a counterweight system, designed to be almost imperceptible. Look for a stone with unusual wear patterns on its underside, near where the old stream bed would have run. A leverage point, not a direct push. A counterweight system. A leverage point. Evelyn's mind, forced to abandon its rigid academic framework, suddenly saw the ancient builder's ingenuity. These weren't primitives. They were master engineers, their wisdom hidden in folklore. She remembered a curious anomaly from the old blueprints Alex had helped her decipher, a subtle, man-made alteration to a minor underground stream, diverting its flow. What if the spring wasn't a natural well, but a cleverly disguised control for a hidden mechanism, designed to be opened only when the water level receded to a specific point, revealing the true weight distribution? Her eyes darted over the 12 rough-hewn stones, the Elder's Circle, that surrounded the dry spring. They all looked the same, weathered by centuries. Then, her gaze caught a subtle discoloration on the underside of one particular stone, near the dry, faint line of an ancient rivulet. She knelt, digging her fingers into the mud. It was rough, almost abrasive, but there was a faint sheen to it, different from the surrounding rock. This was it. Breathless moment. As Evelyn braced herself to attempt to leverage the stone, a guttural shout ripped through the air. Finch's lead operative, a burly man with cold, calculating eyes, emerged from behind a crumbled wall, just yards away. He held a small, portable metal detector, its faint beep indicating he was close to something. He saw Evelyn, recognized her frantic activity. "Hold it, lady," he barked, his voice rough. "What do you think you're doing? This is a restricted site." He lunged forward, clearly intending to stop her, to claim the discovery for himself. For a heart-stopping second, Evelyn was exposed, alone, on the vast, desolate lakebed. The operative, a physical threat, was closing in. And the truth of Ethelgard, the Sunstone amulet, felt seconds away from being seized or destroyed. It seemed all her efforts, her hard-won belief, would be crushed by crude force. But Evelyn, fueled by a surge of desperate resolve, ignored him, her face grim with determination. She jammed her fingers under the edge of the stone. She remembered the rhythm of Agnes's song. The stone holds its breath. It wasn't about brute force. It was about precision, about finding the exact leverage point. She pushed, twisted, feeling for the subtle balance, the specific pressure point that would unlock the ancient mechanism. Her muscles screamed in protest, but she ignored the pain. She felt a slight give, a faint shifting. The stone groaned, a deep, resonant sound from the earth itself. Just as the operative lunged, his hand outstretched to grab her, Evelyn put her entire weight into a final, precise push. With a deep, resonant thunk, the large stone slab pivoted inward, revealing a perfectly concealed, dark chamber beneath, accessible by a short, narrow passage. A rush of damp, earthy air, thick with the scent of ancient wood smoke, wafted out, the very scent that had haunted her dreams. She scrambled backward, stumbling away from the newly revealed chamber just as the operative, unable to stop his momentum, plunged headfirst into the darkness of the hidden passage with a yelp. He scrambled to get out, cursing, caught in the very trap Evelyn had inadvertently sprung. From the depths of the small chamber, a faint golden light began to emanate, growing brighter, pulsating with an almost ethereal glow. Elias, catching her breath, looked down. There, nestled in the center of a small, perfectly preserved pedestal, sat a magnificent, smooth, obsidian-like stone, intricately carved with the same geometric pattern that had haunted her dreams. It pulsed with an internal luminescence, a quiet, powerful energy. The Sunstone amulet, Suddenly, the silence that had pervaded the lakebed shattered. A powerful gust of wind, the advance guard of the predicted storm, swept across the parched earth, whipping up dust devils. And then, the first drops of rain, large and heavy, splattered onto the exposed ruins. Witness reaction. On the distant shore, a scattered crowd had gathered, drawn by the unfolding drama and the bizarre sight of Finch's operatives converging on the ruins. Reporter Chloe Davis, microphone in hand, stood with her camera crew, broadcasting live, capturing the chaos. She had been tipped off by Finch about Evelyn's unscientific behavior, ready to expose her further. Professor Alistair Finch himself stood nearby, a smug smirk on his face, expecting to see Evelyn's final humiliation and the easy seizure of any artifacts. But as the hidden chamber was revealed, and the golden light of the sunstone amulet pulsed outwards, a collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Chloe Davis, her jaw dropping, stared at the screen of her camera, then back at the exposed ruins. The images were undeniable. The camera zoomed in on the amulet, its ancient glow undeniable. The operative, scrambling and cursing from the hidden chamber, was clearly visible. Finch's smug smirk vanished, replaced by a look of profound shock, then fury, as he realized his scheme and his reputation were crumbling before his eyes. Live on television. The rain began to fall in earnest, drenching the exposed ruins, but the golden light of the amulet seemed to defy it. The whispers from the crowd turned to gasps of astonishment, then to murmurs of profound awe. "It's real," someone whispered, the sound carrying across the desolate landscape. "The legend. It's real." Principal Davies, having driven out to the lakebed herself, having heard the initial reports, arrived just as the rain began to fall. She saw the unearthed chamber, the glowing amulet, and the utter defeat on Finch's face. Her initial skepticism, rooted in her rational mind, was utterly obliterated by the raw, undeniable truth. She looked at Evelyn, standing amidst the mud and rain, a quiet triumph in her eyes, a woman who had dared to believe what no one else would. A profound sense of admiration and a deep, shaming realization of her own errors washed over her. Evelyn's victory was not just a personal triumph, it was a public vindication of folklore, a profound recognition of Agnes Miller's incredible foresight, and a devastating, resounding defeat for those who clung to arrogance and dismissed truth. The ancient secret of Ethelgard had finally emerged, bathed in the golden light of the sunstone, a symbol of wisdom rediscovered. The deluge broke over Havenwood, cleansing the parched earth and swallowing the exposed lakebed once more. But it could not wash away the profound revelation that had just occurred. Professor Alistair Finch's ambition, built on a foundation of academic hubris and thinly veiled envy, crumbled under the weight of undeniable truth. The live broadcast from the lakebed had captured not only the miraculous discovery of the sunstone amulet, but also the frantic, damning attempts of his operatives to seize or destroy evidence. The aftermath was swift and unforgiving. Finch faced immediate and severe academic repercussions. An emergency session of the University Ethics Committee was convened. The evidence of his covert meddling, his attempts to discredit Evelyn Reed, and his direct interference with a nascent archaeological site were overwhelming. He was stripped of his tenure, his research grants were revoked, and his reputation, once gleaming with scholarly prestige, was irrevocably ruined. This Type A villain, motivated by a ruthless ambition to claim glory for himself, received a just and public downfall, his academic career reduced to ashes by the very truth he had tried to suppress. Reporter Chloe Davis, standing drenched by the sudden downpour, her microphone still live, watched Finch being escorted away by university officials. Her initial skepticism, fueled by Finch's insidious leaks, had shattered with the sight of the glowing sunstone, on air, her voice filled with genuine humility. She issued a heartfelt public apology to Evelyn Reed. "I, and this station, owe Dr. Reed an immense apology," she stated, her gaze unwavering. We allowed ourselves to be swayed by a false narrative, dismissing truth when it presented itself in an unconventional form. Dr. Reed's dedication, her courage to pursue truth against all odds, has not only rewritten history, but has taught us all a profound lesson in open-mindedness. Chloe Davis, once a skeptical adversary, became a vocal and unwavering supporter of Evelyn's work. Her reports now highlighting the intertwining of history, science, and overlooked wisdom. Meanwhile, Evelyn, soaked to the bone but radiant with a quiet triumph, was approached by a delegation from the State Department of Historic Preservation and the leading archaeological institute. The discovery of Ethelgard, a pre-colonial settlement of such complexity, was unprecedented. Dr. Reed, the lead archaeologist, a renowned scholar from the Smithsonian, stated, his voice filled with awe, "What you have unearthed. It changes everything we thought we knew. Your methodology, your intuition, is extraordinary." She was offered an unprecedented opportunity to lead a major archaeological expedition to fully excavate and study the submerged ruins of Ethelgard. This wasn't just about a job. It was about a chance to rewrite American history, to bring a lost civilization back to light, and to validate her unique, interdisciplinary approach to research that combined rigorous academic methods with the wisdom of oral traditions. Substantial university funding, official state support, and international recognition were all now at her disposal. It was a purpose far grander than she had ever imagined, a culmination of her life's quiet dedication, finally blossoming into global significance. Weeks later, the initial emergency response had given way to organized recovery. The heavy rains had temporarily refilled Lake Serenity, resubmerging the unearthed ruins, protecting them until the full expedition could begin. Evelyn and Agnes Miller sat together on Agnes's porch swing, the air clean and fresh after the storm, the scent of damp earth mingling with Agnes's dried herbs. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the ancient oak tree in Agnes's yard. "You always knew, didn't you, Agnes?" Evelyn asked softly, her gaze fixed on the distant shimmer of the lake, now once again concealing its secrets. Her voice held a newfound reverence. Agnes smiled, her eyes twinkling with a profound, ageless wisdom. "The land remembers, Dr. Reed. It holds its stories in the stones, in the rivers, in the whispers of the wind. You just have to listen to its old songs, and to the dreams it plants in a receptive mind." She looked at Evelyn, a deep understanding passing between them. "The truth always finds its way to the light, child. Sometimes it just needs a little help from those brave enough to believe." Evelyn nodded, a rare, genuine smile gracing her lips. "I spent my life searching for facts in dusty archives, never realizing some of the most profound truths were singing to me from the deepest parts of the land, waiting in the memories of those who listened." She thought of her vivid dreams, the scent of wood smoke, the chiming bells, not stress-induced fantasies, but ancient echoes. They talked for hours, the meticulous historian and the keeper of folklore, their conversation weaving together threads of history, legend, and the enduring power of human stories. The initial skepticism, the professional disdain, had vanished, replaced by a deep, mutual respect and a shared understanding that the greatest discoveries often lie where the boundaries of knowledge meet the whispers of the past. 1 year later, the waters of Lake Serenity were being carefully refilled, their surface once again shimmering under the vast upstate New York sky. But the memory of Ethelgard, no longer a forgotten whisper, lived on, etched into the very fabric of Havenwood. The town, revitalized and proud, had become a testament to the power of open-mindedness and the profound connections between science and ancient wisdom. Dr. Evelyn Reed was no longer just the meticulous town historian. She was an internationally renowned scholar. Her unique methodology now widely respected within the academic world. The Ethelgard excavation, now a multi-year, multinational project, had revolutionized the understanding of pre-colonial settlements in North America, proving a complex, forgotten narrative of indigenous ingenuity and adaptation. Her life, once confined to dusty archives and academic texts, was vibrant and dynamic, filled with groundbreaking discoveries, exhilarating field seasons, and the camaraderie of a dedicated research team drawn from around the globe. She found profound personal fulfillment, no longer merely a purveyor of facts, but a fearless discoverer of lost worlds, her work bridging the gap between documented history and the rich tapestry of oral tradition. Recognizing the crucial role that previously dismissed knowledge had played in her greatest discovery, Evelyn established the Ethelgard Institute for Interdisciplinary Historical Studies. This nonprofit organization, funded by grants and public donations, was dedicated to bridging the often rigid gap between academic history and local folklore. It funded ambitious research into oral traditions, forgotten legends, and utilized cutting-edge technologies like drone lidar and advanced sonar to explore hidden historical sites both above and below water. The Institute developed innovative educational programs, teaching young historians and aspiring archaeologists to value all forms of historical evidence, to approach local legends with respectful curiosity, and to understand that truth could manifest in many forms, not just the written word. Evelyn often led workshops, encouraging students to interview elders in their communities, to record their stories, and to see the profound historical insights often hidden within seemingly fantastical tales. The story culminates on a serene, late summer afternoon, the waters of Lake Serenity, now almost entirely refilled, gently lapped against the shores, mirroring the clear sky above. But now, visible from key points around the lake, subtle markers indicated the precise coordinates of the submerged historical site, a silent acknowledgement of the hidden city below. Evelyn stood on the shore, her face turned towards the sun, a rare moment of quiet contentment. She was not alone. Beside her stood Agnes Miller, now a celebrated elder storyteller, her quiet wisdom finally acknowledged as a profound source of historical truth. Agnes, her eyes twinkling, recounted an ancient Ethelgard tale to a circle of rapt listeners. Ethan Vance, now a promising young historian and a key member of the Ethelgard excavation team, stood nearby, taking meticulous notes. His once skeptical mind now fully open to the myriad forms of historical evidence. A diverse group of students, from local high schools and international universities, gathered around them, their faces alight with curiosity and a shared passion for discovery. Evelyn held a carefully crafted replica of the sunstone amulet in her hand, its obsidian-like surface, intricately carved with the same geometric pattern that had led her to Ethelgard, caught the light, gleaming with a quiet, powerful luminescence. She looked out at the shimmering lake, its surface reflecting the endless possibilities when rigorous science and ancient wisdom finally converged, illuminating the shadows of the past to forge a brighter future. Then, she turned back to her team, a profound sense of peace and purpose in her eyes, knowing that the rediscovery of Ethelgard was not just an archaeological triumph, but a testament to the enduring power of human stories, and the quiet courage of a historian who dared to believe. If this story stirred your heart, if it reminds you that courage can alter destinies and that light always finds a path even in the deepest darkness, please leave a comment. Share this story with those who need inspiration. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to never miss our upcoming stories.